All right. So good. So yeah, you would just, when you come in, just check that that little blinking light is on when we start the class, because it's important that we have a way of capturing this. And our reader, XY, ZY is then posting that. So that will be helpful for us. Oh, and if there's any point that we are talking about something sensitive, and we will occasionally, we're going to talk about some issues about ethics and discrimination and other things that might come up. And when we get to something, if you feel it's discriminate, if it's sensitive in any way, then you'd ask me if you'd like me to pause the recording. I'll happily do that. Okay. So don't hesitate if you just want to say, hey, please pause the recording for a minute, and then I'll do that, and then you can ask me something that might be sensitive. Is that okay? Okay. Because otherwise it's going to be recorded, and I hope you feel comfortable with that. And let me see. I'm going to go over to the syllabus here, and just let's talk about it for a minute. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, make this. Okay, so I can make this a little bigger. And can everybody see that, my screen?
Yes.
That's interesting. I'm not able to scroll. Oh, there it is. It's a little lag. Okay. It's interesting. I haven't seen that lag before. Okay. All right. So the homework for today was to review those policies and read the textbook, chapter 6, right? And hopefully you were able to find the textbook. It's available online. You're all already read the introductory chapter. This chapter 6 is about lecture style and tips. So the assignment then of this week is to prepare a Blackboard lecture. And we want to have fun with this. It's going to be aimed at freshman level engineering students. And you're going to present some topic that you're interested in. And we're going to do it. And the reason for this is I want to get some sense of how you present in without relying on the slides. So we're going to ask you to use, this is the option I think is easiest, is that in a blank Google Doc, you could just open one up, you click Insert Drawing, and then select line Scribble. And then your mouse essentially is like a drawing pad, okay? So you can just, it's like you're writing on a blackboard. I realize it's not that easy to write with a mouse, but we won't hold that against you. Although I do want to look at your penmanship, and it's something we're going to talk about, which is being legible. So hopefully you've practiced a little bit. And there's an aspect of this about introducing yourself here as well that I want to give you some practice on. And so as we go through this, the idea is we're going to invite, I'm going to look for volunteers, and I'm going to work through everybody in the class. But I want you to also pay attention while others are going and give them some feedback. And so what I'm going to do, the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to cue it up so that after you finish presenting, you're going to be the first responder to the person who goes right after you. Okay, so you're going to be responsible for asking one or two good questions or giving some feedback to the person. Now, it's not about the content here, although you can comment on that if you want, but it's really about the style of the lecture, what they present. We want to get your thoughts, your insights, something, and here's the protocol we're going to use in this class, which is we're going to do something called a compliment sandwich. And you can see that here. The compliment sandwich is you give a compliment to what they did, then you give constructive criticism, something that you think they could do better, and then another compliment. So again, when you say constructive criticism, it doesn't say, hey, your handwriting is really terrible. Right? That's not a way to say it. It's a way to say, hey, this would be really nice if you could emphasize to really write a little more crisply. And does that make sense? So you want to say it in a positive way. All right. And then we're going to go through these, and then we'll talk about some, in the context of this, these are some of the things we're going to be talking about, which is, it's about introduction, and you're going to be introducing yourself as though we're your class and you're the GSI walking in. So we really want to see, how do you start things off? That very first impression is very important. And we want to, and I'm going to just tell you in advance, one thing that's we found in the past is a lot of GSIs gloss over their name and barely say it, and don't write it down. And everybody's kind of wondering, who is this person? How do I address them? So I want you to really take a moment, and this is important whenever you're starting class, and really say your name, write it down, and if it's a name that some people have hard to pronounce, help your class out by giving them some way of pronouncing it. Like it rhymes with this, or you can think of it like this, or you can call me this, right? Just you give them something that will make a very clear way for them to call you, and that's very important. Don't gloss over this, because it can be, sometimes you know your name and you just say it super fast and they don't catch it and they'll never get another chance. It's very awkward for a class to ask, excuse me, what is your name? So that's part of the thing I want you to say. Very clearly, slowly, draw it out, spell it, make it phonetic, just make sure they get that. That's very important first step. And then another thing I want to talk to you about right now is language differences. And I know from the wonderful list from the roster here is that we do have a lot of language differences in here. And I want you to say, never be embarrassed about that, okay? If I were called to teach a class in Mandarin, I would be extremely nervous. I would be it would be terrible, okay? My Mandarin is essentially non-existent. Okay, so so your students, you should say something like that. Like, look, English is not my native language, so I'm going to be doing my best in here. But if I say something that you don't understand, or I'm not pronouncing it correctly, just help me out by letting me know. And what you're doing there is you're breaking the ice of that moment of saying, first of all, you're acknowledging that you know there's a difference in language, and it's perfectly fine. And you're also letting them know that it's okay to talk about that. Like, it's not a big secret that everybody has to pretend isn't there. And you can say, help me out. And if they give you a hard time, just say, hey, listen, how would you like to teach a language in Turkish? Or whatever your language is, okay? And remind them that you're doing something extraordinary by coming here and teaching in a language that wasn't your first language. Okay, and we'll talk more about this as we go. And if you have questions, let me know. But I hear that oftentimes this is really an issue because a lot of students are very uncomfortable because now they're in front of a bunch of students who speak natively English, and they feel that they're going to be judged. But don't let anyone judge you for that. You are doing something amazing by even being in that room with them and in an American university, let alone Berkeley. So you're there, you've earned it. So let's work, the attitude is let's work together to make this a positive experience. And if they hear that, then they're going to be on your side, they're going to be helping you, and you can make mistakes freely because it's okay. Okay, does that make sense, everyone? All right. And then there's some things about attitude. We'll talk about these, reading the class, again, noticing who's there, the Blackboard, some things about clarity and how you use the space. And then there's some nuances here about intuition, repetition, defining your terms, writing down the key points. I want you to be thinking about those. We'll, again, give you some feedback, constructive feedback as you go. Empathy, by that I mean know your class. So in this case, I teed it up by saying it's freshman engineers, but I didn't give you anything else. So knowing only that, you can make certain assumptions. They better know algebra, but they may or may not know calculus. And you want to, just in terms of the notation and things you put down, you want to be careful to be empathetic to their level. and their skills. And then soliciting questions and how do you answer questions, because we might interrupt you with a question. And I encourage everyone to do that, because that's also part of being a good teacher, is being able to respond on the fly to a question. So everyone is encouraged, you can ask at any time, hey, excuse me, I didn't understand. What did you mean by that? And could you say that again, or anything like that? But do that because I want to see how you respond. Okay, and then of course, the other thing is, this is the first time we've ever done this on Zoom. So it's very different and very weird and unnatural. And so I want to see how you respond to that too. So, and who knows how long we're going to be doing it. All right, so given all that, any questions? I'll unshare my screen here.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
When you mentioned the Blackboard work, you mentioned you told us to use the Google Slides. Why don't we use a pad if we have? Why
yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, you can absolutely use a pad. Whatever is easy for you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to imply that you had to use the Google.
Okay. Because writing in Google Slides is kind of really hard for me.
Okay, fine. No, use a pad. Here's the one thing is that many people don't have the.
Yeah, I mean, if we do.
If you have it, yeah. Sure, good. I'm totally flexible on that. Okay, so any other questions before we get started? I'm hoping to get some volunteers. What?
I had a quick question, if that's okay.
Sure.
How do you want, if we have a question while someone's kind of giving their 2-minute lecture, is there like a specific way you want us to ask? Do you just want us to turn on our mic, or do you want us to use the raise hand feature?
Great.
How do you want to do that?
Let's do this. Let's do it as a turn on the mic. I find I like that a lot, and so I'm lecturing because I'm trying to, when I'm giving a talk, I have a pad, I have the screen, I have all this stuff, and I don't see that. And in fact, today was a good example. In my other class, the student interrupted me about halfway through and said, questions are starting to accumulate over in the chat. And then I looked over and there were like 8 questions there. So I hadn't even looked at that. So that's why I want to just say, it's fine to interrupt. I think that's, and I think that's something we all have to get used to now. In fact, I'd be happy if you guys all unmute because it's more comfortable. It's very natural to ask questions, but sometimes there's background noise or whatever. So don't if you don't feel comfortable, but by all means, just jump in and say, excuse me, I have a question, okay? Oh, and so Julie said, I just look at the chat right now. She said, you can set up the meeting to start recording, but here's the nuance. We have learned the hard way. Chris knows this from my other class. What happens is some people come into the meeting at random times. I don't know why, but those generate Zoom recordings because of that automated thing. So I get all these emails about everybody just stepping into my class at random time. Anyway, it turns out to be very complicated. So that's why we're doing it manually.
We had to pick through like 15 different cloud recordings to find the real one when we did the automated.
Exactly. So Zoom sends you email every time it's got a recording, and then some of them were like 3 seconds, because somebody came in and left. So that's why we're doing it this way. All right. Good. So who's my first volunteer? Who's brave? Put a hand up in the hand area. Okay, wait. I see some right across the top. Wait. Let me see here. Wait, I don't see them as hands. No. I was going to have your hand go up in the chat in the participant list over here. Then I can see that. Ah, good. Claire got in there first. It's like a quiz show, All right, she wins the prize. First off, okay, so Claire, are you ready to go?
Yep.
Okay, now also I'll say, by the way, by volunteering, you get one benefit that by going early, we're going to be less critical on you, okay? Because you're fresh. That's a benefit, right? By the end, you have better absorbed all these other mistakes that everybody else we've talked about. So no, I'm just kidding. But I want to encourage you to volunteer early because then you get it over with and you don't have to, so we go lighter at the beginning than as we go along. Okay. So actually go ahead and put up your hands if you want to. The system keeps track of that, who put them up in what order. And so we'll keep those up and I'll go down that list. All right. So Julie, you're up first, or sorry, Claire, you're up first. And so you're going to share your screen first, and and then we're all gonna watch you.
Sounds good.
And I don't have my watch. Does anybody have a timer? Because my daughter took my phone. Can anybody time her? So just set up a little timer. Salim, thank you. All right, so just set up a timer that makes a noise and unmute yourself so that, let's say, what did we say, 2 minutes?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, so give her a little advance notice. So like at 1 minute, 45 seconds, if you could give her a warning, and then she should wrap up in 15 seconds, okay?
Okay.
All right, okay, wait, now. All right, are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right, Claire's up.
Hello, everybody. My name is Claire Arthurs. I will spell that here. I'll be using a combination of text and scribble writing, but today I'll be introducing statics, an introduction to statics. And so to start with, we want to know, well, what is statics? Primarily, it's known as the study of forces without a change of motion. So what does that mean? Well, we have to break it down. What are forces exactly? Forces are things that you are loads that you apply to objects to change their behavior. They're made up of a magnitude, so they have a quantity, and they have a direction, so they're known as a vector as opposed to a scalar. And then what constitutes a change of motion? Well, typically we think of an equilibrium or things moving around or things not moving around. And so one thing we can look at is Newton's first law of motion, which you might have heard of in your first year or physics class in high school. So he states that an object at rest tends to remain at rest, and an object in motion tends to continue moving with constant velocity. So if you have something moving at a constant speed, then
30 seconds.
oh god, okay. But there's a caveat. So unless so an object tends to remain at rest, and an object in motion tends to keep moving at constant velocity unless there's an external force that's acting on it. And so this can be represented by an object like this, a block sitting on the ground. You can think of it as yourself sitting in your chair. You feel a force underneath you, and something, and you're weighing down on the force. And so this can be disturbed by.
Time out.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay. All right. Good job, Claire. That was really good.
I had plans for drawing things with my examples, but yes, 2 minutes is very fast.
I know, 2 minutes goes by really fast. And again, we're giving you really benefit of the doubt. You can unshare your screen for a second. We'll give you the benefit of the doubt again because you went first and you're really brave to do that. Really appreciate that. And I think, a couple of things I would just say right off the top is you're very clear, and your image looks great on there. We can see you very nice and clear. I will say that. And the one thing is I did want to encourage everybody to use essentially, I don't want you to have pre-typed or certainly not pre-drawn images. So in this case, you kind of, maybe I wasn't as super clear about that, but I think if you, for others, I really want you to see how you actually draw. Now I realize it's going to be really hard with a mouse or a pad or something. I totally get that. But I just want to see how you're using the board, because later we're going to have a chance to do it with slides. You're going to do another version of this exercise with slides. So that's good. And let's see. And then timing, of course, is an issue. Everybody's going to probably run into this, and especially as we go, that just to keep it to 2 minutes to be fair. So in some sense, you had a pretty ambitious topic there to cover statics, right? Which is a whole course in itself. So but it's, again, that's fine. It's just a matter of learning and scoping your topic. And one of the things that always surprises everyone when teaching is how little you can actually teach in one session. It's amazing. Usually the first day I came in with like 6 pages of notes, and I got to page 3. And it's very normal because you just can't go as fast as you can, when you're just reading. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Claire. Anybody else? Otherwise, we're going to go to Julie, next. And Claire, you're going to be able to be responding to Julie, okay?
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
And thank you, Chad,
good.
for timing me.
Yeah, and actually that was good. I think the 30 seconds is a better warning than 15. So let's do the 30 second. I think Salim said he was doing timing, but someone else, who else did it? All right.
My alarm did go off, but I was really confused. I was not sure what was going on. I thought I was timing 2 minutes.
No, that's fine. So why don't you time it 1 minute, 30 seconds and just say 30 seconds left. Okay, Salim?
Okay.
Good.
Sounds good.
All right. All right. So we have Julie up. And Julie, whenever you're ready.
Okay, let me know when to start the timer.
When she starts.
Okay, hi everyone. It's great to see you today. I'm your GSI, Julie Mulvaney-Kemp. You can call me Julie. Today I'll be just sharing with you the concept of a local minimum. This is a mathematical term. And to start, let's just look at a graph of a function. We have our axes here, our x-axis and our y-axis. And then let's draw the function. It's not really so important exactly what this function is. We're just going to talk about the general shape. So let's call it our function f. One of the first things that jumps out to me about this is that there's some points that look kind of more interesting, perhaps, than some others. For example, like this point seems interesting to me, and this one, you know, maybe some others too, but let's just look at these to start. So we'll call this A and this B. Sorry if it's a little hard to read those. Hopefully it looks like an A and a B. And each of at first I said I would be telling you about a local minimum. Both A and B are called local minimum. And they're called that because they have a smaller value than the points around it. They aren't necessarily smaller than all of the points. That's why we use the word local to mean that it's just smaller than the points kind of nearby. Next, we'll define this concept in more formal mathematical terms. That's the end.
Awesome.
Good. Okay. So you stayed within the time zone very, very effectively. That was great. And I also really liked your intro. And you picked a really good topic because it was able to, you're really able to cover that nicely.
And all my feedback.
Oh, I'm sorry. Right. I'm sorry, Claire. All right. You give her the feedback. I'm sorry. You're right. Go ahead.
Okay. No, that was, I mean, yeah, you really did steal it. That was, yeah, your topic was perfect, especially for the time. Yeah, you did a lot better than I did on that. Yeah, you were really clear, and you approached it with like a very calm pace, and it didn't feel stressed or anything, and your drawing was really good. Good job.
Everybody.
Good. All right, Claire, you were absolutely right. That's great. And also, Julie, I think you did well because it is tricky to draw with that that tool. What did you use, by the way?
I have like a pen.
Okay.
But I didn't have like my pad hook or like, yeah, I wouldn't typically use this. I find it harder to write in than just in like some other like note-taking apps or whatever, or like note-taking programs. But wasn't using the mouse. Yeah.
You weren't using the mouse. You were using the pen. Okay, interesting. Because I do think that interesting for this is going to be, again, we're going to have to assume that Zoom is going to be with us for at least the rest of this year, and probably through the spring. And so I think it's worth thinking about how you can do that, because I think if you are teaching this semester or next, we're going to need to use our mouse. So think about how you're going to do that. And by the way, there are some resources available on the campus. There's apparently, if you're teaching, they are going to make some kind of pad available. But we can also, just real quick, I understand some people found really inexpensive notepads, basically writable pads like Wacom. Others, there were something like $39 or something like that. Does that sound right? Anyone?
I don't know.
What? All right.
Not sure how
Well,
much they cost, but
it's not too expensive. I mean, I realize it's not on a graduate budget. By the way, I lived as a graduate student on a grad stipend for many years, so I know how it is. But you know, that might be a good investment, and you might just want to consider it. Or talk to the instructor or the campus and say, can I get that provided for you? Okay. All right. Great. So that was Julie, and thank you, Julie. You're going to be a respondent now for Abdullah Abbas. So Abdullah, are you ready to go?
Yeah. Just 1 minute. Okay.
Wait, Abdullah, you can't, this is not, no, I'm sorry, we can't. Because what you just did is what I would say is going to be what we're going to do for a future opportunity where you're going to be able to show slides.
Oh, that's not slide, this is my iPad.
I know, but you've already written it out.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I was gonna write it down, but now because of timing, I was gonna like put it down. Actually, I just
no. Okay, but that's very different, right? Because that's really like slides. I mean, like you've prepared it already. So let me ask you not to go right now because I want you to redo this. I want you to be prepared to do it on the fly for us.
Yeah. Okay.
And
so,
I'm sorry if that wasn't clear, everyone.
Okay.
I'll try and make that more clear in the future. But yeah, we wanted it to be like, you know, what really what Julie did, where you just start with a blank page and you just go from there. Because I want to see how you respond to that. And I realize it's very unnatural and it's not, it's a stretch. But that's why I'm trying to push you to communicate using just that simple, essentially walk into a whiteboard. Okay.
So I'll read it.
Blackboard.
Like maybe.
Okay. All right. No problem. No problem. We'll come back to you.
Okay.
So Salim, or anybody who wants to now needs more time, totally understandable. Just we can because we're going to be doing this. I'm pretty sure we're going to do it next week too. So we'll have time. Salim,
all right.
Are you ready to go?
Yes.
All right. So someone else is going to time Salim since he's not going to be timing himself. And Salim, you want to share?
Since I'm
Okay.
feedback.
Okay.
Yes, sharing screen right now.
All right. Who said they'll give him feedback?
Julie, because I went last.
Okay,
And I
perfect.
have time also.
All right, perfect.
Okay, so can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
All right,
Yes.
let's do it. Drawing. No. Sorry, this is being really slow. Okay. So, okay, I'll start. So, recently, like a day or two ago, there have been reports saying that a man in a jetpack was spotted near LAX. So I was like, can we probe this with basic continuum momentum physics? So that I'm going to explain that concept. So to start, let's draw a little dude with, wait, sorry, technical error. Yeah, little dude with a jetpack. He has force of gravity going down, a force of thrust going up. Okay, the handwriting is going pretty bad. So we know from physics, Newton's second law, F is equal to dp dt, which is v dm dt. We're assuming constant velocity. So, and we know that the dude was hovering when the plane passed by. So, so the force of gravity is equal to the force of thrust, which is equal to mg. So plugging this in here, we get mg is equal to minus v dv dt. You do separation of variables, and then you integrate both sides of the equation. So you get dm over m is equal to minus v over g dt.
30 seconds.
And so in the end, you get the time the person is hovering is equal to minus v over g, natural log of whatever mass difference of the fuel is. So let's assume 20% of the jetpack is fuel. So natural log of 0.8. If you plug in some numbers, the velocity, saying the velocity is 850 meters per second, you get around 20 seconds. And in the news reports, they said that the person can hover for 45 minutes. So it seems pretty weird. So it's pretty cool that with just basic physics, you can sort of explain something you read in the news yesterday.
Okay, great. So, Julie, what's your response?
Well, I love like the just whole like setup and kind of like the hook or whatever at the beginning. It made you like really want to find out what was going to happen with the jetpack. And I think that like with that, you forgot to introduce yourself, like say your name. But yeah, and then you were saying at some point like that the handwriting was going kind of badly. I actually think that until you started kind of running out of space, like it was pretty, I mean, of course it wasn't like ideal, but it was legible to me.
Got it. So,
good. And first of all, I would say, Salim, the topic is great. And I really like that you picked something very, very fresh. And I saw that report too. Apparently these pilots were freaking out because there was somebody with a jetpack in LAX. And the big question is hover time, right? So people they've done this, but for very short times. And I guess you're sort of, the content is you're getting to the point where that actually, because of the mass of the pack, you can't really hover that long. Is that what your basically your conclusion?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So you say by the laws of physics, there's a limit to how long you could stay aloft. Is that right? Is that true?
Yes.
Actually, I'm just.
Well, the limits of this model is that like it assumes that it's constant velocity. I mean, I imagine that a jetpack is not actually constant velocity, but it might be close enough. The other thing is I say 20% of the mass is fuel, whereas I imagine that like a jetpack that a human would wear would probably be even less than that, which would even give a shorter, like I tested a bunch of numbers, but would give an even shorter hover time. So you'd need like an infinitesimally small amount of fuel for the hover time to reach like 20 minutes or 40 minutes or something like that. Like I was plugging in numbers, you need like natural log of like 10 to the minus 30 to get like 20 minutes.
All right, wait, let's not go too far down this path. But basically what you're saying is you need a giant jetpack to be able to stay up that long, right? But you need much bigger than you.
But you need a tiny amount of fuel that's just extremely efficient that is just not burned. Yeah.
So if you're using any known fuel, it would be, you need a lot of it to do that.
Yes.
Okay, good. So I think, so here's my one feedback that I would say is let's talk about handwriting. So I really think I'm going to give you straight up. I think you need to work on that because your students are going to struggle here and they're not able to find it. So you were going really fast. I understand that. You had a lot to cover in a short time. But I would say take the time as you're talking to really take the time and craft those letters out. Make sure everything comes out clearly, okay? Because you actually could have done that, I think, if with some practice. And this is something I think I really want you to come out of this class, which is about penmanship matters. And you'll be surprised. But your students, they don't know the material. They don't know what they can't understand. And if you leave, like the minus sign was almost invisible in there. And again, I know that you're not writing on a real blackboard, but I think that just being able to pay attention to notice when something isn't right and correct it, these are really good things to get in the habit of doing. And I'm
Yeah,
not
so-
saying
so-
that I'm the best person on this. by the
So,
way.
so one thing I want to bring up on that point that was something I like consciously made a decision about was that like
Yeah.
for my tablet, like I used a pen the same way that Julie used, but it was
Yeah.
the compromise of if I like fold the tablet and put it against the table where I can take care of my handwriting, the camera
Yeah.
won't be on my face, so I won't be able to like explain kind of as I go.
Okay.
So
Okay,
that's-
great. Actually, no, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a great point. So one of the things we need to do is, I think, especially with Zoom, you brought up a really good point. We have to find a way to have that in a comfortable place so that you can write and have your camera at a decent angle.
To comment on that, Professor, I actually, if you guys see, I'm in the meeting twice. I'm going to use an iPad, but one of the things that I found that can be helpful is if you're using a secondary device, maybe have your video through your computer like this. And then my other screen, I have the video turned off. So that's just like a possible idea.
Got it.
Okay,
That's
great.
super cool. Awesome.
Very nice, Chris. Thank you for bringing that up. That's great. So not everyone, I realize that not everyone has the luxury of having two devices. Fair enough. Or they also have a danger that you may have limited bandwidth and it might really be a problem for wherever you're staying. Okay, fair enough. So give modulo those things. So I think that thinking this through is really important. And let me just take a moment now to just comment on things like the camera positioning, since you brought it up, Sonny. So important now for Zoom that you actually take the time to, make sure you're lit, right? That you put the camera's on your face and you can see. Because I see, for example, I'm not going to pick on anyone, but if you look around at the gallery view, there's some of us who are really in the dark. And I want you to think about that. It's really easy to just pivot around so that the window is behind your camera. And so you're facing the window and then you can get much better lighting. Or just, turn on a lamp or something. But pay attention to that because it actually makes a big difference in if we can see you. And I actually invested in another camera because I really wanted to be able to adjust things. So it is important. And especially now, the other thing is position of the camera, because as you might notice, I'm trying to look into the camera as best I can. I forget a lot of the times, but I'm working on this really hard. But looking into the camera when you're addressing the class really is helpful, because then they have a sense that you're talking to them. But if you're down here looking at something on your screen, right? It's you see the difference. It's very big. And by the way, I think this is going to be solved soon with software, because it's actually very easy to detect the eyes and make a small correction in software so that we can always make sure that you're looking at the camera, right, synthetically. But surprisingly, Zoom hasn't come out with that yet. I think Google is probably going to do that when they come out with their new version of Google Meet, which I've been waiting for every day. But those are things to keep in mind, is eye contact. Totally a new thing here, but in meetings, it really makes a difference. Look up at the camera whenever you can. So to your point, Salim, having that pad in a comfortable place so that you can manage it is one of the art of being a good, effective teacher. Okay.
Got it.
So think about that. And
I also shared the link for anyone who was interested in taking a look at what was going on with the jetpack stuff.
okay, thank you. All right. Listen, you could do a whole course on that topic. I think it would be greatly subscribed. I want one too. All right, good. Thank you, Salim. And so you're going to be the respondent next for the next person, which is Preston.
Hello.
Who's had his hand up. And we're going to give him the floor. And Preston, you ready to go?
Yeah, can anybody not see my screen?
No, we don't see it.
You do not see it.
No. Now just
But now.
Yeah, now we see it.
Okay. What were you saying?
No, go ahead. I was just going to say there is when you share screen, it's really important to click on the share screen, the right option there. Because I've had that happen where I was giving a talk and I was halfway through it before someone said, we don't see we're still on slide 1. And I was like, oh. So, okay.
All right, I'm ready.
All right.
Hello class, my name is Preston Awadesian, and today I'll be teaching to do simple derivatives of simple functions. Let's say you have some function f of x equals x, where y is a constant, and to a power of that x, f prime is now the derivative written with this 1 up there is y minus 1 x to the power of y minus 1. So let's say we have an example of x to 100, and that's going to be g of x. G prime of x will now be 100 x to the 99. So what if we have this q
Professor
of x?
Awadesian.
Yes?
I might have seen this in a previous class, but do you mean when you wrote f prime of x, y, just y, not y minus 1?
Yes, I did. Thank you for being so attentive, Robin. I really appreciate that. There we go. See, I did the math right, but I explained it wrong. Thank you for speaking up. So I guess, Robin, if we have a q of x equals x to the 5th, what do you think the answer is?
Oh,
This
was a long time ago. I don't know if I feel comfortable answering in front of the class.
I understand that. Well, thank you for being honest about how you feel. Is there anybody else that would like to volunteer what now or q prime of x will be? Nobody? Okay. Well,
maybe
Oh.
5x to the 6th.
5x to the 6th. Okay.
Four.
Yes. Thank you.
30 seconds.
Thank you, Yuhang. Yeah, we actually decrease the numerator, not increase it. So this will be a 4. And that will get a nice star. Thank you. Tune in next week for why this is important in PowerPoint format. Thank you.
All right. You have me laughing here. This is funny. I like the response from the peanut gallery too. All right. Salim, what are you going to tell them?
Okay, I would say, first of all, I think you improvised very well with the feedback you got from the audience. I think you did a great job in incorporating that opinion and sort of spinning it back to the audience with asking for a volunteer.
Okay.
I think that towards the middle of the 2 minutes, things might have gotten a bit like it was unclear how to follow the map on the page because there was some going that way and then some going down. So it was sort of hard to follow the logic. Assuming you're not familiar with the math.
Okay.
And then in the end, I think it was great that you stuck to the timing. When Robin intervened, I sort of paused the timer so it can be fair, I guess. But I still think that you managed the time very well because I only paused for like maybe 10 seconds and there was more than like 20 seconds at the end.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, good. All good points. And timing wise, listen, don't stop the timer. If students are going to ask you questions, remember that doesn't mean you get an extra 10 minutes at the end of your class. You still have to stay with your class time. So what that means is I want you to know how to manage that because you might get this is another thing that happens sometimes. You get a student who comes in and they start really hammering and pestering you with long questions and sometimes a long shaggy dog question. And you're like, excuse me, do you have a question here or see me after class or something, but you have to know how to manage this. So that's a good thing. We might get to see practice here because I see this is a lively group. So I like the fact that you said, excuse me, you corrected him. That was great, Robin. And then Anthony, I really liked, you set him up by giving him a deliberately wrong answer. That was great. Good. I mean, that's what I want to see us doing, okay? Play with it. Okay, that was genius. And I really like that. And you and Preston, you handled it all really smoothly. You were like, oh, excuse me. And you're absolutely right. I made a mistake. By the way, huge lesson. Fine to admit mistakes. Okay? Absolutely fine. In fact, it's great to admit mistakes. You will be amazed, but students love it when you make mistakes. And when they correct you and you say, thank you, you found a mistake, everybody wins, okay? The student feels good. They actually are going to feel so good. Second of all, everybody feels like they can relax a little bit. You're not a superstar. You're not Superman, right? You relax because you it's okay to make mistakes. You're going to, All right. So absolutely. And one of the best professors I ever saw, he passed away 2 years ago, Hubert Dreyfus here at Berkeley. He was a professor of philosophy, and he would teach very abstract topics about Heidegger. And in the middle of sometimes a student would raise a hand and they would ask him a question. And it was very common response that I saw him do many times. He would say, you know, I never thought of it that way. He would say, wait, let me think about it. And this long moment would go on. He'd be looking up. And he'd say, you know, I just don't have an answer for that. He said, that's a very interesting question. Let me think about it, and let's talk about it next week, okay? You could hear a pin drop in that room. And why? Because everybody was like, oh my God, somebody just asked a question that Professor Dreyfus, 70 years old, who's been studying Heidegger for, 50 years, thought was novel. And I tell you what, everybody thought, I want to do that. I want to ask him a question that he's going to do that too. Okay, so it's suddenly, boom, everybody was alive and excited by that potential. Okay, and I watched him, I studied in a lot of his classes. He won all teaching awards. Amazing guy, but it was because of the way he handled questions, and he always really thought about them, and he was really welcoming to a novel question. Okay, so cultivate that. If you can get your class asking novel and interesting questions, you are going to have so much more fun teaching than you would if they're just sitting back quietly. Okay, and if you ever make fun of somebody asking a question, which by the way, I get it, it's somebody asks a dumb question. Some people say there's no such thing as a dumb question. That's not true. There are dumb questions. There's a question when you just answered it and then someone asked because they probably weren't paying attention. You want to say, hey, I just answered that, but be careful because you can really, really chill the class on questioning if you put anybody down, okay? So never do that, okay? I will tell you, it is the worst thing. It will stop all questions cold and nobody will ever ask another question again. And you will have a very cold, silent room in there, and don't do it. So always say, okay, here, let me answer that question, give it your best response. And it's fine to say, I just, as I covered that earlier, but you can just answer it again. Don't make the person feel bad. Okay?
On that topic, I have a question because I have a professor that doesn't stop talking for 2 hours, and it's very informative, but you have questions and it's really hard to interrupt them. You just like, I see you laughing, Salim.
Excuse
you know
me,
who I'm talking about.
excuse me.